She don't miss nothing, got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea don't stop. She don't miss nothing, got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea don't stop. She don't miss nothing, got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea don't stop. She don't miss nothing, got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea don't stop. She don't miss nothing, got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea don't stop.
Hey, how is everybody doing today? I like that music. What's up, y'all? What's going on? It is, why does it seem like Saturday for me, y'all? I really thought it was like Friday. Somebody had to tell me, no, girl, it's Thursday. It's Thursday, but now it's kind of feeling like the weekend. What y'all doing? What's going on? What's going on? Y'all, I want to jump into this Diddy situation. And I'm going to be honest, I really wasn't into, the whole Diddy thing. And I don't know if I explained to y'all, one of the reasons that I really wasn't into it is because from the start, it seemed like a bunch of bullshit to me. But the reason now why I'm feeling like I need to speak about it is because they lying like a mother in YouTube. I'm just like, this man was acquitted and y'all are still lying. And I'm just like, at this point, we gotta, not be creating videos lying on people when Cassie lied. I mean, let's just be honest. 12 people saw the evidence. Y'all got to understand how this goes. They saw the freak off videos. Not only did they see the freak off videos, they were there. You feel me? They were there. So the fact that people are creating lies on social media and trying to discredit a person that was acquitted. Now, this has nothing to do with his personality or who he is as a human. This has nothing to do with anything other than he was not convicted of those charges, okay? He wasn't convicted, okay? The jury did not believe Cassie's lies, okay? And I can tell you why. Because even me as a person watching it and listening to it, I wasn't following it either, because I'm like, girl, either you were forced or you wasn't. Because when you say, oh, I did it with them because I didn't want someone else to do it, how in the hell were you forced? If in fact you were forced, give the specific times. But if y'all recall, they played that hotel video over and over again. What that hotel video shows is violence. Now, if he was convicted of, charged with violence, he did that shit because we saw it. But you cannot say, here's the video, he's violent. He most definitely did this. No, you have to make the dots connect. The state did not prove their case. And in all honesty, That's why I wasn't interested, because I'm like, this stuff just don't add up. Now, this has nothing to do with shaming victims, because let's be honest, y'all, everybody is not a victim. And if a woman is saying that somebody did something to her, it should be investigated, because unfortunately, we live in a world where people tell lies. And I don't know if y'all have sons, brothers, cousins, that's males. How would you feel if your relative or your son said that they didn't do it, but yet this female is saying it happened? It does not make it truthful because she said it, because unfortunately, we live in a world where people tell lies. And it seems like Cassie's lies has been exposed, because now if you go online, people are talking about it and saying, girl, you are bitter, because even with everything, Diddy has set his ass in jail. And let's be honest, Diddy really created this, because, man, if you wasn't out here sleeping with these prostitutes, you wouldn't be there. But the fact of the matter remains, he was found not guilty. Cassie is still, now this is a woman that just had a baby. She's supposed to be happily married, sending letters into the judge. Don't let him go. He is going to be let go at some point in time. And hopefully his attorneys is appealing the decision, because in all honesty, you have to give someone, he's been convicted of, the whole prostitute stuff. Okay, it is what it is. You cannot make him accountable for things now he was not convicted of, because if that's the case, what is the purpose of a trial, right? And apparently, I know it's a bunch of fake YouTubers on here making shit up. And that was part of the reason I'm like, you know what? I'm going to talk about it, because they spread so many lies. And I just don't understand, because there's a lot to talk about if you just talk about the case. So let's talk about the case. How did this first start? If y'all recall, the government did this big old press conference, and they told us Diddy is going down. And we were all like, what in the entire hell just happened? Because I am just like most of y'all. I was like, ooh, Diddy. But just like everybody else, we heard the evidence and the jury has come at a decision. But let's get into how this originally started, because it seemed like the government tried to play this case in the media, and the jury saw through this bullshit. So let's get into where this, where it all started from.
Morning, everyone. My name is Damian Williams, and I'm the U.S. Attorney here in the Southern District of New York. Today, I'm announcing the unsealing of a 3-count indictment, charging Seancombs with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, interstate transportation for prostitution. The indictment alleges that between at least 2008 and the present, Combs abused, threatened, and coerced victims to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct. As alleged in the indictment, to carry out this conduct, Seancombs led and participated in a racketeering conspiracy that used the business empire he controlled to carry out criminal activity, including sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects at, and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to his abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs did not do this all on his own. As I mentioned, Combs has been charged with RICO conspiracy. He used his business and employees of that business and other close associates to get his way. Those individuals allegedly include.
So just so y'all know, when they say that he used his business, they're establishing the RICO charge, which he was not found guilty of. This entire case was a witch hunt from the very beginning, like constantly talking about baby oil. This is really dumb, but this is where it all started from.
Included high-ranking supervisors in the business, personal assistants, security staff, and household staff. The indictment alleges that those individuals facilitated the freak-offs. They booked the hotel rooms and stocked them with the supplies, including drugs, baby oil, personal lubricant,
baby oil,
extra linens, and lighting.
Really?
When the hotel rooms got damaged, they helped clean it up. They arranged for victims and commercial sex workers to travel for the freak-offs, and they delivered large quantities of cash to Combs to pay for the commercial sex workers. The indictment also alleges that they helped Combs cover up his crimes. During the March 2016 incident at the LA hotel that I mentioned earlier, a member of the hotel security staff intervened, and Combs attempted to bribe the staff member with a stack of cash to make sure that what happened was kept quiet. And as the indictment alleges, in late 2023, after public allegations were made about Combs's crimes, he and
Exactly. I just want to refer to the comment in the chat, Sydney Dennis. Exactly. So that's why I'm really playing this video, because from the beginning, they were real dirty and real filthy. They did a whole press conference to tell us about a bunch of BS, because what they were trying to do was taint the jury pool. So they put in way too much effort to try to convict somebody of baby oil, Astroglide, and then you have the women testifying that said, well, I did it because I didn't want him to do it with someone else. Well, if you are saying that you didn't want him to do it with somebody else, how in the hell is he forcing you because you said, well, I thought maybe that if I didn't do it, something would happen? Girl, go sit down. Then you have Cassie, who came to court, testified, and then it seems like she started changing, saying, oh, well, yeah, because the freak-offs was my job. It's just like, girl, this is so fucking far-fetched, and it just makes no sense.
Others pressured witnesses and victims to stay silent, including by making phone calls to witnesses and victims and giving them a false narrative of what they had experienced.
Okay, let me just address a comment. So first of all, If you're ignorant, this is just not the video for you. So this is not any video about anybody being a saint. So if you are ignorant and you are not understanding what this video is about, just leave, because never in any video that I did said that he was a saint. But we're talking about them trying to put somebody in jail for the rest of their life for being an asshole. Now, if you don't understand that this ain't for you, feel free to leave. But I'm not going to address ignorant comments about somebody being a saint. You ain't a saint. I ain't a saint. Nobody is a saint. This video is not about that. You probably an asshole yourself. Do you need to go to jail for the rest of your life? Girl, bye. Your follow puts absolutely nothing in my pocket. Remember that. Moving on.
And as alleged, Combs used others to help conceal his abuse by monitoring and preventing victims from leaving a location in order to hide their injuries, or by locating and contacting a victim who had attempted to flee. As part of this investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims. And they seized cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs, more than 1,000 bottles altogether.
And I feel like this is where they lost the case. Why are they talking about freaking baby oil and Astroglide? Again, this is why I just wasn't interested, because I'm like, I want to know what the actual crime was. But listening to the testimony, and I've actually requested the transcripts because I want to go over Cassie's transcripts and Jane Doe's transcript. Another thing that I'm learning is with regards to those freak off videos, one of the jurors spoke and said that was really one of the deciding factors. Keep in mind, as the public, we were not able to see those videos. But if you are saying that you were forced to do something and they're watching a video where you looking like you are having a great time, tell me, why would you expect someone to be convicted when you are sitting here and the jury, let's just call it what it is, the jury didn't believe them? Because if the jury believed them, he would be convicted of these crimes, which he was not.
Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches. As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well, we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here, the serial number has been thoroughly defaced. Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there. Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. A year ago, Seancombs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City. Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4-HSI-TIP.
Now, another thing, as y'all noticed, they did this huge press conference, which to me was where they lost a lot of people. Then they put up this number to say, pretty much, if you have had anything, any interactions with this person, call this number. Y'all already know what that's going to do. People are going to be lying, because I'm not saying that Diddy is a saint, but you have to understand that people will do a lot of strange things for money. So they put up this number. Basically, if you got information, if you know of anybody, call this number. So what it led to is attorneys coming out saying, okay, we got this lawsuit, we got this lawsuit. So a bunch of different lawsuits. And what y'all should have learned with this particular trial, Cassie got $20 million from Diddy because everybody was saying, oh, he's guilty, because if he wasn't guilty, he wouldn't have settled. But what y'all should have learned from that is a person don't have to be guilty to settle. What I've learned is people, especially when you got celebrities that have a lot of money, they will settle stuff like that just so they don't have to go through trial. Okay. So essentially, Diddy's insurance company paid Cassie $20 million for something he was ultimately found innocent of. Okay. So Cassie got $20 million from Diddy. She sued the hotel and got $10 million. So she got $30 million. And Diddy wasn't even found guilty of the charges that she said he did.
I want to express my deep appreciation for the victims and witnesses who have used their voices and helped bring this criminal conduct to light. We would not be here without them. I also want to thank the dedicated case agents on the HSI Trafficking in Person Squad in New York. They have been with us since day one and have worked tirelessly on this investigation. They will continue to be invaluable partners to us. I also want to thank the incredible agents and analysts from SCNY who have also provided tremendous assistance on this case. I'm deeply grateful for their continued work. And finally, I want to thank the outstanding career prosecutors from SCNY who are handling this case. Meredith Foster, Emily Johnson, Chrissy Slavic, Madison Smizer, and Mitzi Steiner, and their supervisors, Jamie Backleiter and Jacqueline Kelly. They are members of the Civil Rights Unit in our criminal division. We created the Civil Rights Unit when I became U.S. Attorney. I'm deeply proud of their work on this and so many other cases. I'll now take some questions.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because that's kind of where it started. They did this huge press conference, told us Diddy had did all these things, and I was sitting back like, oh my God, because we don't think about, that when we see news, like when y'all, come on YouTube, you really don't think that is what this person telling me a lie. So when I heard it, I was like, oh, I cannot wait to the trial. But let me show y'all something else. Like I said, you got to call it for what it is. They did not believe Cassie. Point blank, period. They did not believe her. They sat there, they listened to everything she had to say, and ultimately they did not believe it.
Let's bring in our legal experts now. Jesse Weber's a News Nation legal contributor and a Law and Crime Network host. Nima Rahmani is a former federal prosecutor, and Robert Hirschhorn is an attorney and a jury and trial consultant. Great to have all three of you here. Nima, I'm going to start with you. The judge denied bail to 𝐾𝐭, saying he has a, quote, propensity for violence, and that he engaged in years-long violence and continues to be unable to follow the law, noting his last act of violence came after he knew he was under investigation. That's a scathing ruling by the judge, is it not?
It is, Elizabeth, and I'm as pro-prosecution as they come, but I think this was the wrong ruling by Judge Subramanian. The jury has spoken. The defense has a right to bail, in my opinion. If 𝐾𝐭 were just charged of prostitution, which no prosecutor would do, every single judge in this country would give him some sort of bail. Now, I know the prosecution, they're trying to backdoor some of this evidence of force.
Okay, I'm going to address a comment because I'm going to address every comment, because what you hoes won't do is come in here and bully me. Let me kind of explain to you something, because I understand a lot of people are ignorant. So he did beat her. He absolutely beat her. We saw that. So are you telling me that because he beat her, everything she said was correct? Is that what you're saying? Because the jury saw this and they found him not guilty. Okay. If you know so much, was he charged with beating her? Because if he was charged with beating her, then that would be a slam dunk case. He's guilty. He's absolutely guilty. Okay. So what I won't do is allow an ignorant person, because you gotta be ignorant. If you say, well, he beat her, she did, and he should go to jail for beating her. But why do you think they didn't charge him with beating her? Because that would be too easy, because he beat her, he will go to jail. It's a state charge, and that will be that. Why would they try to put somebody in jail for the rest of their life for having a fight or for beating somebody? So what if your son or somebody in your family beat somebody? Should they go to jail for the rest of their lives? Should they? It's domestic violence. Nope, you don't go to jail for the rest of your life for domestic violence. As his attorney said, if he was charged with that, he gonna plead guilty. Don't come on here with the bullshit telling me he beat her, because that's absolutely wrong. But they should have charged him with that. And then guess what? Everybody would be like, yeah, he did that. But what they tried to do is use the beating video to sway everybody. That's what they tried to do. And it worked for you. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for me.
And coercion, and you can technically do that. Even acquitted conduct can come into sentencing. But look, you're a prosecutor. You got to take your loss and move on. I know this is the Southern District of New York. They're not used to losing. And look, I think Combs is a terrible human being. But as a prosecutor, you're supposed to pursue justice. You got to respect the jury verdict here. And this is nothing less than a complete and total loss. Prostitution was a layup, but in all the serious counts, the jury didn't believe the victims. They didn't even think that any of the...
Hello, bingo. Did y'all not hear that? He said the same thing I'm saying. The jury did not believe the victims, y'all. Like, come on. I mean, we got to use our common sense. The jury didn't believe it. Why didn't the jury believe them? Because I'm going to be honest. When I heard that press conference, I believed it. I was like, oh my gosh. Because the first thing come to my mind, he did that. Like, because who's going to lie about it? The jury didn't believe him, y'all. They had 12 people. I think it was 4 women and how many men? A total of 12. So whatever, do the math. They didn't believe him. Why didn't the jury believe them? I mean, highly educated people, they said everybody on the jury was a college graduate. The jury didn't buy the story. Y'all do know that the jury actually got to see the freak off videos. They put on their little, what are those things? Their earbuds or whatever, and they were able to watch that. Nobody else could see that. So why would you think, if the proof showed on that video that this had happened, do you really think they would have let him go? For what? Why would they let him go? The jury didn't believe him. I'm going to have to rewind that. The jury didn't believe them.
Was a layup, but in all the serious counts, the jury didn't believe the victims. They didn't even think that any of the racketeering acts happened, the bribery, the extortion, the arson. So I think Combs should be out on bail. I wouldn't be surprised if the defense files an appeal to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. I don't think they're going to be waiting till the October 3rd sentencing.
Yeah,
Elizabeth.
I think we heard Mark Agnifilo just say that the fight continues. That they are not going to just take this and wait until October 3rd for a sentencing. Jesse, we'll get to the jury verdict in a second, but I just one more question on the judge's ruling to keep him in jail pending sentencing. Did the defense lawyers' own language come back to haunt them? Because the defense lawyers, Combs' lawyers, admitted in both their opening and closing arguments that Combs beat women up.
Yeah, they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. They admitted that he...
Exactly. It's not even the fact of, I mean, because we done heard Diddy stories, right? But unfortunately, out of all the stuff we heard about what Diddy did, the fact of the matter is the jury didn't believe him. I mean, damn, why would the jury not believe him? When you listen to their testimony, you had to be dumb if you did not see through the lies. They were clearly lying. And here's the deal. They were lying and they were telling some truths. So the thing with, with that, when somebody lie and tell the truth, for me, I don't believe anything you say. The jury was also instructed that if you believe somebody is lying, you don't have to believe anything that they have to say. So the fact of the matter is, the jury didn't believe these hoes. I mean, you said that you were trafficked, and even with the video of him beating her, because he did do that. And in all honesty, you see him running down the hallway with a towel. She said she was trying to leave. Why didn't the jury believe that? Why didn't they believe that? I mean, so you're saying that the jury just sat there and let him walk free because they just wanted the big black man to come to, be set free? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's not what happened here.
He is basically engages in domestic violence because they were trying to make the point to the jury, yes, we're admitting the bad facts, but we're saying that is not a federal crime. The judge said, you admitted he's violent. One of the factors we have to determine, is he a danger to the community? And look, when you're doing a bail analysis, it's very different than anything else. You can include a lot more evidence, and there is a lot more leeway. It is on the burden for the defense to say that Seancombs is not a risk of flight, that he's not a danger to the community. And clearly, as Nima was saying, while the circumstances might have changed and he was acquitted of the most serious charges, the factors didn't. And it's basically the same kind of bail analysis the judge was doing and prior judges were doing during the whole course of this criminal process.
Robert, the women who testified against Seancombs at trial said they wrote letters to the judge this afternoon saying they remain afraid of him. But with this verdict, he's going to get out at some point in a year or maybe 4. It was up to, right?
Right. So look, they may have been afraid, but the system worked. I mean, prosecutors have to charge what the actual crime is. And Elizabeth, I've been coming on your show for a while now.
And that's kind of where I'm at. He was charged with buying ass. That's what he was charged with. So all of these factors surrounding that case at this point is moot because he wasn't convicted of that. Now, to keep saying, and I know that's in everybody's mind, that he beat Cassie, y'all need to charge him then with battery, because if not, then stop talking about it, because you saw the video. If you choose not to charge him with that, why the hell y'all keep talking about it? The man was convicted of buying coochie, D-I-C-K, I don't know. He was convicted of buying sex. But here's the deal. And people are talking about this too. Well, wait a minute. If you think about it, he actually did do that. But didn't Cassie do it too? Because didn't these workers testify that she was the one 99.9% of the time, or wait, all the time, that was paying them? So why is it that she ain't convicted of this? Because we've already received the verdict that she is not a victim. So people can really stop calling her a victim at this point, because the jury said it didn't happen. So she can stop the victim. She's not a victim. She's no longer, she can stop. She's not a victim.
Saying over and over, Freako, not Rico, that he's a swinger, not a trafficker.
Freako, not Rico. Did y'all hear that? Let me rewind that. Freako, not Rico.
Over and over, Freako, not Rico, that he's a swinger, not a trafficker. And that's exactly what the jury said. Listen, every single victim is going to be feeling the exact same way, but they got their voice heard. The jury decided the case, and now they've got to move on with their life. I mean, look.
Absolutely. So the message or the note in the chat says, they lied and said he was. So basically, there were so many lies that, I mean, you would literally have to write them down. One of the things was he held me over the balcony or whatever. She confirmed that this was the date, asked several times. Then Diddy's defense comes back and say, are you sure? Yeah, she's sure. Well, ma'am, then the next question is, was it possible to be in 2 places at one time? She looked stupid. Well, he couldn't have done that because he was actually not even in the state, and he had documented proof where whatever it was he was doing during that time. So there would be no way that he could have been in two places in one time unless he omnipresent like God. Then when asked, she's sitting there looking stupid. Her entire testimony should have been thrown out. And these are the things that the jury saw through. Like, your statements is inconsistent. You're saying this. And then Mia says he a'd her. But he a'd you, but you never said it until 6 months after you had met with the prosecutor. So it seems like you would meet with them right away and say, yeah, he did this to me. It took you 6 months to realize that you said he a'd you. Stop the lies. You are lying. You are lying. No, and in all honesty, like I said, the only reason why I'm doing this is because they so lying on YouTube, making up these lies. And I feel like if you have an opinion, that's fine. But making up these lies when this man has been found not guilty is absolutely shameful. Now, I know, as a content creator, you want to create content, but I would say maybe just do a video and talk about how you feel. But to continue to do videos and lie when this man has been found not guilty and make Cassie continue to be a victim. She is a victim of domestic violence. She most definitely was a victim of domestic violence. But all of this other stuff, the jury didn't believe her. They did not believe what she said.
Diddy is a manipulative, condescending, arrogant, rich, famous abuser. He's a domestic violence guy. He's an asshole, but he's not charged with any of those things. What he was charged with, the jury convicted him on the Mann Act, that's the prostitution, and acquitted him of everything else.
Yeah.
It was the right verdict and a courageous jury.
Jesse, this means, you and I have been talking about this, this means the jury didn't believe Cassie and Jane when they said they were forced to do these things. They believed the text messages back then. They didn't believe their testimony now.
You know why it's surprising? You and I were talking about this yesterday. The jury came back with a jury question yesterday, and they basically asked for a repeat of testimony of 3 specific alleged instances of sex trafficking, one including the whole 2016 Intercontinental Hotel tape where Seancombs was beating Cassie. And then shortly thereafter, they came back and said, we have a verdict as to these charges. And I said, I'm not convinced that he's going to be found guilty with respect to Jane, particularly because they didn't ask for a readback of testimony. There was a lot of great testimony with hers. But I was saying that quickly, they're probably going to find him guilty with respect to Cassie. And they didn't. And by the way, surprise, they were hung on racketeering. There's no way we can switch it. They come in today, and in an hour, they come back and say, we're not guilty. I would love to speak to the jurors and find out.
So would we all. Nima, are you surprised that they said that Cassie wasn't coerced, given the fact that there's an actual videotape of him beating her up and dragging her by her hair back to one of these freak-offs when she tried to get away?
I'm not surprised based on reading the tea leaves in this case. And look, I went on X yesterday and I predicted this verdict. So let me tell you why. First of all, the cross-examination of Cassie with the emails and text messages over 2 days was brutal. There was a reason the defense kept playing the freak-off videos. Obviously, we didn't see him, but I'm just guessing that it shows Cassieventura seeming to enjoy herself sexually.
And that's what I said, y'all. The videos were played to the jury. While these women are saying that they were forced, the jury actually watched the videos of them being engaged. I mean, you would be able to tell from watching somebody that's forced to have sex, and you would, see somebody that doesn't look forced. So the jury made the determination that what they said was simply not true. Like, the jury didn't believe they asked.
And the defense originally asked for 2 weeks for their case in chief. Then they go to 2 days. Then they go to 30 minutes just reading text messages into the record. So they felt very confident. Now, when juror 25 on day 1 says, I can't deliberate, reportedly, that leads me to believe he's a defense juror. If he came out and said right away, I'm guilty, I don't think the jurors would have delivered that note to Judge Subramanian. So now you have at least one defense juror, and a quick verdict in these types of cases where there's a lot of evidence is usually a defense verdict.
Yeah.
I always said there's a path to racketeering that excludes the sex crimes, maybe extortion, maybe bribery, maybe kidnapping. So I knew that they were not guilty on sex trafficking. The only chance the prosecution had of success in this case is to prove the racketeering. They had some jurors yesterday. Maybe they slept on it and had a change of heart today. But the fact that the jury came back not guilty on the racketeering leads me to believe that this was nothing less than just a complete and total loss by the prosecution. This ended up being the most expensive prostitution trial in American history.
It's unbelievable.
But it's not a total loss. And the reason it's not a total loss is the jury did convict him of Mann acts. So while they didn't get the major charges, the prosecution did get the other ones. And everybody, listen, when you get that summons for jury duty, I always say this, don't try to get out of jury duty. Make sure you go down.
So, I mean, I'm not even going to say it again, but y'all know what I want to say. The case wasn't proven. I mean, they overcharged. They did so much of absolutely nothing. And again, I wanted to see this, like, where is the evidence? And I'm like, this is just not going to cut it. And let's not forget, guys, there were witnesses. The people, what they call them, the SEX workers, they showed up to this trial. And if y'all even recall, I think this guy was a really good witness, and he actually turned out to be really, I think his entire testimony helped the defense. What did he say? He felt like this was overkill. He said he felt like from his interaction with Cassie is that she enjoyed it. Let's get into it.
I think the verdict is actually the right one, in my opinion. I always saw it as more of a domestic violence scenario. And, you know, me even taking myself out of the situation and just trying to look at it from an individual, like a juror would, when you see this long-term loving relationship with this is his girlfriend, right? And then also multiple scenarios where the sexual lifestyle was consented, you know, it was just hard for me to shift from this is just a domestic violence different type of relationship to a criminal sex trafficking scenario.
Do you think like you testifying, you know, possibly helped Diddy's case?
I do. Like, I feel like if the deciding factor of this scenario of the sex trafficking charges was going to be based on consent or lack thereof, I definitely feel like my testimony could have possibly influenced the way it was viewed by our jurors, because the coercion part of it is obviously the main factor if you're going to prove that, right? So, you know, in regards to her testimony, in regards to her situation directly, with me being one of the two guys that they brought up to corroborate, obviously my experience would not lead you to believe somebody was sex trafficked. I think there's a fine line between, because the domestic violence, right? The domestic violence is undeniable, you know? And I think if anything, I think they made a mistake. I think they underestimated the actual loving relationship that persisted, right? Because in the closing arguments, it's clear, right? The stories that were being told, one, he's this kingpin that doesn't get no, and it's just, this is how I do. And the defense told a story of this is a complicated love story relationship. And when you see the expressions in the text messages outside of the sex of love and care or whatever, it's going to be hard for anyone, including the jury and anybody really seeing in totality, and not just see this as a relationship. Dysfunctional, but a relationship.
Do you at all feel, you know, bad for someone like Cassie or Jane, the other woman who testified that was dating Diddy?
Oh, I feel terrible for both of them, and not even necessarily associated with the charges, right? You know, women in general deal with a lot of shame associated with their sexuality, right? So to have two women have to pretty much broadcast their sex lives to the world and be under the scrutiny of that type of perception and judgment. And, you know, it's ugly. Look, I'm a guy, and some of the comments that I get you know, I'm a guy that's been a male stripper for 30 years, and I look at some of the comments that I get in my DM just from nasty people, man, and it's like, whoa. So I feel like as women who did this in the partnered relationship, that this is supposed to be private, you know, and to have this publicly out to the world in this way is rough, man. I feel for both women to have to go up and share those experiences. I think the verdict is that.
And I think the way he explained it, I mean, I think he did a great job. Again, you have one of the workers who is saying, I didn't get that vibe. So I just don't understand, you know, well, I do understand, because for some reason we live in a society, regardless to how crazy it sounds, people will always believe the woman. And the bad part of that, y'all, is women know they can tell a lie and that they will be believed. That's why for me, I want to hear both sides. I'm not just going to jump to conclusions. Now, if he had been found guilty, he's just guilty. But my thing is, we got to respect the decision. You know, he was found not guilty. So you got Nancy Grace, a Karen, because that's who Nancy Grace is to me. Now she was saying, you know, he's going to be found guilty. Now she's saying, oh, the jury got it wrong. I'm just like, people, you know, they just want this man to be guilty. And it's like, he's been found not guilty. Now, here's a lawyer. Now, this is actually Jay-Z's lawyer. And he had been speaking out, basically saying the case was BS from the beginning.
Called it. You really did.
I don't think I need to be a genius to call this. I mean, that was a case that was so over prosecuted. It was really the most expensive prostitution trial in the history of American jurisprudence. That's all it was. Racketeering to me was a joke, a racketeering enterprise. I mean, when we think of racketeering, we think of things like organized crime, drug cartels, vicious gangs who were born to commit crimes. I mean, was never a racketeering case. Sex trafficking is a high standard. Sex trafficking, you really need fraud, coercion, force. There was so much evidence of consent in this case that it was impossible for 12 people to believe that sex trafficking happened. That was not sex trafficking. Again, that was some horrific stuff and whatever, but everyone was a willing participant at times. So, it was, to me, it was absolutely going to wind up being this way. And if you have a doubt that's based on reason, you must acquit. And here, there was so much evidence of consent. I mean, if you looked at the contemporaneous text messages that were elicited by the defense throughout this trial of Cassie and the other one, it was clear that they were consenting, at least at portions of this. So, when is it consensual? When is it not consensual? I mean, this case was, again, I called it from the beginning, not because I'm a fortune teller. I think I called it because the evidence and the charges sort of were pretty clear to me that this was going to wind up being a prostitution conviction. And we spent God knows how many billions of dollars in federal court talking about baby oil, applesauce on hamburgers, the stupidest stuff I've ever heard, urination, the things that you really don't expect to hear in a federal district court. That was the gist of this testimony. So, look, Diddy was proven to be a bad guy, but this is not the case. This was not the case to bring against him. The whole thing was weird. It was not done right, and it was done, as I've said before, I believe to garner publicity for certain individuals, and maybe they wanted to make a name for themselves. But this did not help anyone's career from the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's for sure.
You called it. You really did.
This did not help anybody's career from the U.S. District Attorney's Office. Now, if y'all know anything about federal court trials, they're supposed to be, especially that particular district, they're supposed to have this great conviction rate. They failed. And from what I'm learning, the fact that they failed, they're bitter, they're mad, because why is this man not being let out? I mean, he was charged with a dang on it prostitution case. a prostitution case, and he cannot get out on bail. Now, I'm not saying that, messing around with prostitutes is right, but the prostitution case came along with the trafficking case. The trafficking case was dismissed. If they had never charged him with the RICO and the trafficking case, he would have never gotten a prostitution. So it was like one of the things that came with it. Now, since this man has not been convicted of it, why is it that they are not respecting the jury's decision? I'm sure they would have respected it if he was found guilty of the most heinous of the crimes, which would have been the RICO. It would have been the trafficking, but he wasn't found guilty of it. So now you say, well, we're not going to give you bail because of this and that. And I'm just like, this is not adding up. Well, guess what? Judge Mathis is speaking out, and he is concerned with this as well, because he's like, wait a minute, why would he be denied bail when the only thing he was convicted of is the prostitution? If y'all remember, when this case was originally charged, they said, no, we're not going to let him out on bail because we are certain that this man is going to be convicted, and we are certain that he's going to be in jail for a long time. So there's no need to give him bail. But guess what? He didn't get convicted. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't work out. Let me...
You know that Sean Diddy Combs has been convicted of interstate transportation of prostitutes, two counts, and has been denied bail. Although I really am concerned about the assaults against the women, particularly disrespecting Black women as such, we must go with what he has been convicted of and respect the jury. And as I had predicted, he should be convicted after hearing and closing arguments of only the 2 counts of interstate transportation of prostitutes. We'll see in the future. Listen to us this next week on the Mathis verdict, as we'll talk about the entire case and the sentencing. The sentencing guideline for a first-time offender is 21 months to 27 months for each count. We'll see whether they're consecutive, whether they're concurrent, or if he deviates from that first-time offender assessment or sentence, if you will. Stay tuned.
So I know I don't know, but I'm assuming that it's relatively hard for y'all to understand that women lie, and every time they say that certain things happen to them is not necessarily true. So Cassie did lie. She lied. The jury didn't believe her. So it does mean in this case that she lied because they didn't believe shit she had to say. So you tell me of a woman who has been, and see, here's the deal. Cassie was so close to him, so it was very easy to believe what she had to say because this was his girlfriend. This wasn't like a random act. This was somebody that he had a 10-year relationship with. So the jury watched the videos, they listened to her testimony, and she did lie. You don't like it? Oh, well. Now, another thing that's quite concerning to me is, and this is how it gets into what is the actual motive here, because Cassie testified, she's went on about her business, but what we have since learned now is her attorney is speaking out, and what her attorney is pretty much saying is that, wait a minute, I'm sorry. What her attorney is pretty much saying is that Diddy is going to receive the maximum sentence, which is really crazy to me, being that if you guys are familiar with federal sentencing guidelines, their structure is not like the state. They get different points for different things, and then it can go up or it can go down. But no way in hell would Diddy get 20 years because they just don't I mean, in order for Diddy to get the full 20 years, he would have to have a history of these convictions over and over. But I thought it was really odd that Cassie has, provided her testimony. She has went on about her business, but yet again, her attorney is testifying, saying how the prosecutors has reached out to Cassie in that they're going to pursue the maximum term. And it's a little bit crazy because he's a lawyer, so he should understand the way federal court works. The judges have to kind of sentence people based on the federal structure and based on different criteria. And judging from Diddy not having a background, well, when I say background, I mean a criminal background. You can't go on the morals of what they said out in the street, or, you know, he was charged with a crime in New York before and he beat it. None of that matters. But let's get into what Cassie's lawyer said.
Yes, for Seancombs, but for Cassieventura. What were you feeling when you were inside that courtroom?
Well, I think there was a lot of mixed emotions in the courtroom, generally speaking. Obviously, we would have liked to have seen convictions on the RICO charges and the sex trafficking charges, but Cassie prompted this investigation by the Southern District, and now Seancombs stands before the court as a convicted felon of 2 federal crimes. He faces significant incarceration. Not the exact outcome that we wanted, but we are grateful to the jury for finding a guilty verdict on those 2 federal crimes.
I want to get back to what you were just talking about, but first I have to ask you, have you had the chance to speak with Cassie?
I have, yeah. So I had an opportunity to speak with her, as did the government prosecution team. She's of the same view. Back in November of 2023, Cassie had a choice. She could accept an 8-figure settlement offer and move on with her life and sign non-disclosure agreements, or she could file a civil lawsuit and hold Seancombs.
Well, here's the deal, y'all. I had to stop it there. Do you see how her lawyer is lying, saying that she chose to file the lawsuit because pretty much she wanted to tell her story? She filed a lawsuit because the money that they offered her, she didn't accept it. So he's pretty much trying to say, oh, well, she did it this way because she wanted to tell her story. A whole liar. Cassie filed the lawsuit because the money that she was trying to get, they didn't agree to get it. I mean, it wasn't agreed that she was going to get that. Now she files the lawsuit and then she's paid the $20 million. But this man is simply saying, oh no, as if Cassie is some damn advocate for women and that everything she did was to save somebody else. No. Cassie filed the paperwork in federal court because there was no agreement to pay her $20 million. And once, Diddy's companies agreed, then of course the lawsuit was dropped.
Responsible for what he did to her and shine a light on his behavior. She showed great courage, great bravery to choose the latter of those 2 options. She turned away the money at first. Ultimately, this case.
She turned away the money. Did Cassie turn away the money? What is he talking about? She turned away the money. Cassie testified that she got $20 million out of this, then another 10 from the hotel. So what the hell is he talking about saying she turned away the money? She turned away the money. He just lying. Of course, he got a nice chunk of it himself, but she turned away the money. Did she really?
Case settled the day after. And, she went through a year-long process of preparing for this trial. I think people who saw her testify,
and this is what you guys should know. If you listen to what Cassie's attorney is saying, they tried to tell us that after Cassie filed the lawsuit that the feds came to her. That is a lie. This man said after Cassie settled, she prepared for the trial, because what everybody else is saying is that after Cassie got the money, what people don't understand is a non-disclosure doesn't work whenever a crime has been committed. So I don't know who Diddy had for his lawyers from, when he was going through this settlement with Cassie, but people think that Cassie settled it and she immediately involved the feds. That is what people think. But if you listen to what her attorney is saying, he says, once she settled, she immediately started preparing for this case. So it seemed like it was more more, very much so money motivated, because think about the chain of events. Cassie got her money first. Then she allegedly went to the feds, because I believe she did go to the feds.
She was a great witness. She was graceful. She shined a light on this. Jane read the complaint. She came forward. Many other people have come forward, are going to be seeking to hold Seancombs responsible in the civil courts. And so it's not all lost. He's now, as I said, he's never been held responsible for anything in his lifetime. He was acquitted on charges when he was in New York with a gun case. And now he is a 2-time convicted felon, 2 federal charges. The government indicated after the jury verdict was read that they're going to be seeking consecutive terms, and they're going to be seeking lengthy prison incarceration. And so Cassie was comforted in knowing that not only has she played a role in the criminal prosecution, but that she has shined a light on this behavior by Seancombs, and many other people have come forward, not only about him, but about other people in the entertainment world as well.
Now, I want to go back to something you said, which is when she filed that civil suit in November 2023, that this is really what started it all. And it really is, in the civil sense, but also in the criminal sense. In this trial, and I was in the courtroom for most of the days, we heard both the defense and the prosecution say that this investigation, this federal investigation, began because of Cassieventura. How does that weigh on her to realize that Seancombs would not have even been in a courtroom if not for her?
Well, I think it's given her some agency in life, where for 10 years, he told her what had to be done and she had no choice. This was her ability to say, no, I'm not going to accept this 8-figure settlement. I'm going to file this lawsuit. And that's what she did. And so she is really gratified in knowing that other people have come out since the filing of the civil lawsuit, and that you're correct. As far as I know, there was no pending investigation into Seancombs prior to her filing the civil lawsuit. We were contacted very soon after we filed, and this investigation ensued. And the team, the prosecution team, I thought did an excellent job. Again, not the outcome I'm sure that they wanted. They didn't get the top counts, but they at least were able to secure 2 convictions of 2 federal felony charges.
Now, you mentioned the settlement, which, as you are saying right here, that Cassie had 2 choices, which was take the money, sign an NDA, or file a civil suit. She chose to file the civil suit. Now, she did reach a settlement within 24 hours. It was very quick, but this was after she filed the civil suit, after all of her bombshell allegations were out in the world. And yet, in this trial, the defense seized on money, not just for Cassie, but also for Jane. The defense, and this is not a direct quote, I'm summarizing, but Mark Agnifilo, in his closing, he said, Cassieventura is the winner here. He called her the winner. He said she's sitting somewhere in the world with $30 million. She's not naive like the prosecutors are telling you. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she's the winner. How did that make you feel and her feel to use the word winner when the jury and the world, by the way, has seen her being horrifically beaten on camera?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to your great reporting and the video that saw the light of day, obviously Cassieventura at that point in time and today is not the winner. She endured 10 years of abuse where she had to engage in days-long sexual acts with UTIs. She alleged that she was raped, and so to call her a winner, even though she did get $30 million, part from, as she testified, part from Seancombs, part from the hotel. No amount of money is going to ever undo what she had to endure and what she had to go through. So I think both she and I didn't really take well to that as her being a winner. And frankly, the fact of the matter is that when she testified, she had already been paid the $30 million. So she had no vested interest in anything other than telling the truth on that witness stand. And while the jury did not convict on the sex trafficking charge, I mean, I think it's important for your viewers to know, in the criminal justice system, the standard is very high. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. The civil justice system is very different. It's a preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. So it is a very high burden. The jury found that the government did not meet that burden, but that doesn't mean that what she said isn't true.
Mm-hmm. Now, his defense during their closing also called Cassie and Combs' relationship, and again, this is not a direct quote, but a great modern love story. How did she feel when she heard that? And I'm curious, has she been following all of the testimony? Because she was one of the first witnesses. She was on the stand for 4 days talking about what she says happened to her. Cassie, as we all know, is now a new mother of 3. She was on that witness stand when she was very pregnant, 8.5 months pregnant. Has she just been focused on family, or has she been following this? And how difficult has it been if she has been following?
Yeah, so I mean, she is primarily and has been focused on her family. She did testify when she was 8 months pregnant, and she is really trying to look forward. And when I gave my statement after her testimony, I made very clear that she was looking forward. She did not want to think about the case any longer. She had given her testimony.
So this attorney is such a liar. He goes on to say Cassie gave her testimony. She didn't want to think about the case anymore, and she was going on to live her life. But yet him, on behalf of Cassie, sent a letter to the judge saying, do not let Diddy out because Cassie is afraid for her life. How could Cassie be afraid for her life when Diddy was not locked up when they settled for the $20 million? So why would she be so afraid for her life? I mean, Diddy was actually free the entire time until he was locked up. So this attorney is just lying his ass off.
Money and now wanted to just concentrate on her family, and she's done that. I mean, obviously it's almost impossible not to see some of the media about the case, and so she has seen some of that. I can tell you that some of the comments that were made in the closing argument I thought were repugnant, frankly, calling those sorts of behaviors as a modern day relationship, saying that she enjoyed sex.
Do y'all see how this attorney takes no responsibility for anything? Cassie sent text messages asking and wanting to do the freak off. It wasn't always a thing that was initiated by Diddy. They both initiated, but they take no responsibility for their actions. And this is the reason why the jury did not find him guilty, because y'all spoke about the video. The video where he is abusing Cassie. One thing Diddy's attorneys did is they owned it. They said, listen, that was wrong. He shouldn't have did that. So although it was wrong, at least they took responsibility for it. The issue with these women, they took no responsibility. But how is it that you can take no responsibility and they have the text messages that you sent? They have loads of information and evidence that suggests that you were in fact wanting to be a part of this. Keep in mind, as I said before, they got the videos. So you do a video engaged in sex, they can look at your facial expressions. You're probably moaning and groaning, but you're going to tell us that you were forced? Come on now, we ain't that dumb. Right. This is a learning lesson for both women and men. Yeah, it is. You said Diddy's attorney screwed him over in the closing argument by mentioning DV. I don't think he screwed him over, Cherry Red, because that happened. Like, I think if Diddy's attorney would have tried to get out of the fact that Diddy had put his hands on her, we don't know what kind of conviction he would have got. They saw that. He had to own that. I mean, how could he not mention that? I don't think he screwed him over. You got to understand, the jury wants people to appear to be honest. You got 2 women that's told a story of being trafficked. Now, that's a horrible story, but the jury didn't buy it. So I think Diddy's attorney was very smart by admitting it. I mean, because how do you not admit something that we're watching? Like, I don't know how you're going to get out of that. Diddy's attorney screwed him over in closing argument by mentioning DV on Diddy's behalf, and the judge and prosecutor used that. Here's the deal. The judge didn't use that. The judge said that they didn't want to let him out, period. They didn't. Listen, the judge didn't want to let him out because it didn't matter if Diddy's attorney admitted it or not. I mean, if you see somebody on camera assaulting somebody, do you really need them to admit it? No, the judge wasn't going to let him out anyway. And I believe that they're probably going to appeal to a higher court, but he didn't screw him over. I mean, you got to take responsibility for something. So I don't think he did. Speak on it. Our women must be accountable also. Our men are not always a problem. And that's the deal here, Tisha. Nobody wants to take accountability. Like, if you watch these YouTube videos, they want to get views and clicks. They lying, making it seem like Cassie is a saint. And then there was one YouTuber that I would watch with regards to the Diddy trial, but he done flipped the script. It's like they're doing anything to get recognized, including lying. Some of the stuff they're saying, they don't even believe it themselves, because it's like, look, they want to get on these different programs, and they know if they start speaking the truth, they're not going to get invited. I feel like the government had a whole campaign with YouTubers, with all of these different content creators. You got Nancy Grace that just hated him. And this is all they spewed over and over again. No accountability. Now, look, if y'all want to do a video and say Diddy is a horrible person, okay. But at the end of the day, you cannot put somebody in prison for the rest of their life for being a horrible ass person. Because if that's the case, then they need to lock Donald Trump up now. Okay. I think that you are being misguided until you have lived. Girl, get off. You can leave. You're misguided. It doesn't matter. So listen, I'm not emotional like you. You're emotional. Abuse, whatever. That has nothing to do with it. So just because somebody has felt like that they've been abused, he should go to jail for the rest of his life. You misguided. You are emotional, and that's the problem. Most of y'all are emotional, and once you become to be a real adult, you'll be able to separate your emotions. So that's what you need to do. You need to learn how to separate your emotions from fact. The fact of the matter is that somebody felt like they were abused don't mean that they were abused, because you sent text messages asking for a freak off. You on video enjoying a freak off. So how is it that you've been abused? Just because you think you've been abused don't necessarily mean that you've been abused. So you're misguided, not me. I think the lawyer thought by acknowledging the DV is taking ownership. Absolutely. Like, I don't know how you would not take ownership. We watching this shit. Like, we see it. Like, if Diddy would have said that wasn't him, I would have been over it. Nick, bye. He did that. You did it. Take ownership. He couldn't deny it. It was on video. Absolutely. But the fact that the judge said, I'm not letting you out, I don't think that was Diddy's attorney's fault. Like, I think that was really smart. They don't want to let him out. I don't know what y'all seeing, but from what I'm seeing, I don't think they want to let him out. Obviously, they have to let him out, but they're not trying to give him, any type of chances. They like, look, we're going to use this, we're going to use that. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm like, listen, he was charged with these crimes, but now he wasn't convicted of it. Now I get it. The story sounds crazy. I was, you did this, but it wasn't proven. So at some point, you got to let it go. Even with the women sending the letters to the judge, I'm scared. Listen, okay, but at some point, he gets to move on with his life. I mean, you do have to take responsibility for the choice that you made, and you cannot continue to blame somebody else. And we got text messages of you saying you want to get freaked off. You on video getting freaked off, and apparently you enjoyed it. So, I mean, the jury has spoken. Nope, not at all. Like I said earlier, he's being held on ego and emotion. Absolutely. He wasn't convicted on those counts, which means it should no longer be considered. Yeah, they don't like Diddy. I mean, A lot of people don't like Diddy. I'm just judging from what I'm reading. They just don't like him. And then what you also have to understand is Diddy was charged some years ago. If y'all remember in the incident with the club shooting, he was found not guilty of that. So at this point, they are sick of him. I mean, this is the second time they have charged him with a crime. Well, they did get a conviction, but it wasn't the conviction that they wanted. So they like, stay in jail. Stay in jail. But the DV wasn't relevant to the case and it was settled. Then Mark compared the escort business as legit. Judge and prosecutor know Diddy didn't pay taxes like a legit LLC. I don't think I get that. I'm sorry, Cherry. I don't get that. Diddy has a business. If he most definitely paid taxes, I don't think I understand your question. Because he has several businesses. I mean, they looked at his bank records. So you better believe if he did something else, they would have charged him with it. So I don't know about he didn't pay taxes. You do know this man has a real business. So I don't believe that, because if he didn't, they would have charged him with something else. So let's not just start making up stuff like them other people over there just making stuff up. Let's not do that. You know, he was not charged with not paying taxes. If he didn't pay taxes, keep in mind, they went in his account. They even told how much money he had at specific times. If y'all remember, Diddy went to Cassie's mom and said he wanted his money back. The money he wanted is the money he had given Cassie because for some reason he felt like he had been played. So Cassie's mom gave Diddy the money and Diddy ended up giving it back to her. So ultimately what it seemed like is he was mad and was like, look, give me my money back for, you know, taking care of your daughter. But at that time, the prosecution said Diddy went to Cassie's mother and forced her to give him money when he had don't quote me on it, $1 million in the bank at that particular time. So they got his bank records. They know exactly what he has. So I don't know about the not paying taxes. I don't believe that. The jury has spoken and we must respect their time, efforts, and dedication in reaching their decision. It is hurtful to hear some YouTubers calling them names like dumb. Exactly. But here's the deal. They wouldn't be dumb if they had found him guilty. So the issue here is you are mad because the man didn't go to jail for the rest of his life. Ain't that some crazy shit? Like, you act like you was there. Like, why are you so involved in this that you're mad because they found them not guilty? When I wasn't there, I did not follow the case every single day, but just judging from what I saw, I said, I'm sorry. Well, okay, they do have proof of, you know, based on what they said on the, you know, prostitution. I said, it seemed like they got him on that, but the other stuff, the only thing I was thinking, I said, well, if we look at the makeup of the jury, we got educated people. They may convict them on the Cassie situation because they may kind of feel sorry for her, but I'm glad they didn't use emotion and I'm glad they weighed the evidence, because you talking about somebody spending the rest of their lives in jail. And this is why, y'all, when y'all get called to jury duty, that it is important that you go, because the juries need to be a makeup of everybody. Because if it's just a makeup of one person, that's how people go to jail for the rest of their lives. Because, hey, it is what it is. He paid for some ass. I mean, charge him with that and let the man go on about his business. Right. There are a million Diddies, and wealthy men, that's all they do. That's what they do. That's what they do. Well, here's the deal, Special K. Cassie's lawyer has other people that he's representing that's suing Diddy. This man done made a pretty little penny off of Diddy, because keep in mind, Cassie got 20 million. I don't know. Is it a third that the attorney gets, depending on what, you know, their agreement is? So you figure if Cassie got 20 million, then how much did he get? What about it? A little, what, 7 or something like that. So he's making money just representing people that are alleged Diddy victims. I watched the YouTube doc today about the CEO of American Apparel on Netflix. That man was disgusting. He was never charged or dragged like Diddy. Exactly. And exactly. What about the Abercrombie and Fitch guy? His case was kind of parallel to Diddy, except that he had a whole bunch of victims. They let that man out. He's on bail right now. Please, we don't know what happened behind the scenes, but court behavior affects outcome. Like when Diddy told the judge, "You're doing a great job." That was cocky and crazy of him. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, that was cocky and crazy of him. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he was found not guilty. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Yes, Special K. That man has so many, and so he had all of these different cases. They let him out. Not only did they let him out, the bail that Diddy proposed originally was way more than he had to pay. So why y'all think that, this is a Diddy thing? I'd be feeling like it's, race related, because at the end of the day, you gotta give him the time for what he was convicted of. And even in this interview with CNN, Cassie's attorney goes into saying that the prosecutor is going to pursue the highest, stiffest sentence, as if the prosecution is going to try to give him 20 years. The max on each case is 10 years. But generally, when it's your first offense, it's not the full time. But this guy goes into saying, yeah, well, he's been convicted and he's going to go to jail for a long time. So I'm just like, huh? I'd like to hear from the jury when this is over. The decision doesn't mean they believe she lied. It could also mean that her testimony did not meet the burden of evidence. I mean, well, here's the deal. The reason why I said she lied is because they have video. So if she said she was forced, they would be able to see it in the video, right? So I get what you're saying, but they actually have video. They have video of this. You didn't get to see it. I didn't get to see it, but the jury got to see it. The jury got to see it. And then look at it like this. Cassie was with Diddy for 10 years. Like I said, I was thinking, if he's convicted, I know he ain't going to be convicted of the Jane Doe one, but maybe they would believe Cassie. They didn't believe it. So that's why I'm trying to tell y'all, they didn't believe her. Now, if you just joined, you're going to have to rewind the video. I showed a clip of some other content creators. I don't remember what network it was on, but it was a bunch of attorneys. And they said the same thing. The jury just didn't believe what she had to say. And I'm going to be honest, when I read the complaint, I was like, yeah, this don't make sense. But of course, I wanted to hear it play out in court, and they didn't go for it. They didn't go for it. He actually complimented the idiot for nothing because the judge was ignorant as hell. Yes, y'all, hit the like button, please. I appreciate it. But yeah, like I said, that's pretty much why I wanted to talk about it, because I'm like, they is just killing this man with all of these lies. He was found not guilty. Let's respect the jury's decision. And that's it. That's all. That's it. That's all. And Cassie, you need to get them people they damn money.
Nothing got the scoop on lock. Spilling all the tea while it's still too hot. Lakeyshakeysha, queen of the plot. Hit that bell, cause the tea